August 17th, 1943, 30,000 feet above Schweinfurt, Germany. 10:47 a.m. The sky is burning. B-17 Flying Fortress Liberty. Belle shudders as an Me-109 screams past her nose, cannon shells punching through aluminum like paper. Inside the ball turret, Staff Sergeant Paul Bates hangs suspended in a sphere of plexiglass and death, his twin 50 caliber machine guns swinging wildly as he tries to track the German fighter. But he's blind. The attacker came from directly below, rose at a 45-degree angle, fired, and vanished into the sun before Bates could even register movement. His guns never fired. Around him, 3 other fortresses are already going down, trailing smoke and fire, spinning toward the earth with men still trapped inside. The intercom crackles. "Ball turret! Where the hell was he?" "I don't know," Bates screams back. "I can't see them until they're already shooting!" Another Me-109 materializes from below, cannon fire walking up the bomber's fuselage. This time Bates sees it, but only after it's too late. His guns swing, track, fire into empty sky. The fighter is already gone, climbing away, untouched. Bates slams his fist against the turret wall. He's supposed to be the fortress's last line of defense. He's supposed to protect the belly, but he might as well be firing blind. What Staff Sergeant Bates doesn't know, what no one in the 8th Air Force knows yet, is that 4,000 miles away, in a dusty workshop at Lowry Field, Colorado, a young armorer with grease under his fingernails and no engineering degree is about to solve this problem with $3 worth of salvaged mirrors and a radical idea that every expert said wouldn't work. What he's about to do will change the air war forever. If you believe innovation comes from the bottom up, from the wrench turners and trigger pullers who refuse to accept that's just how it is, then stay tuned and hit the subscribe button. Because this story isn't just about mirrors. It's about a forgotten hero who saved thousands of lives with nothing but scrap metal and stubbornness. By the summer of 1943, the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress has earned its reputation the hard way. With 13 50 caliber machine guns bristling from nose, tail, waist, chin, and ball turrets, it's the most heavily armed bomber in history. The name Flying Fortress isn't marketing, it's a promise. These bombers are supposed to defend themselves in daylight, fly in tight formations, and bomb Nazi Germany into submission without fighter escort. In theory, it's brilliant. In practice, it's a bloodbath. Over Schweinfurt, over Regensburg, over the skies of occupied Europe, the Luftwaffe is ripping the 8th Air Force apart. Between June and August 1943, the loss rate climbs to 5.8% per mission. That doesn't sound catastrophic until you do the math. Air crews must fly 25 missions to complete a tour. At a 5.8% loss rate, the statistical chance of surviving all 25 missions drops below 25%. 3 out of 4 men will be shot down, captured, or killed. The problem isn't firepower. The B-17 has guns. The problem is geometry. German fighter pilots have figured out the fortress's blind spot, a cone of vulnerability directly beneath the bomber, angled between 20 and 60 degrees. The ball turret, a rotating sphere of armor and guns slung under the fuselage, is supposed to cover this zone. But the turret gunner can only see what's directly in front of his gun sight. He has no peripheral vision, no warning system. By the time an Me-109 or FW-190 enters his field of view, it's already firing. The gunner's job becomes reactive, desperate, and often fatal, not just for him, but for the 9 other men aboard. Lieutenant Colonel Curtis LeMay, architect of the combat box formation, writes in a confidential memo to 8 Bomber Command, "Our gunners are frequently surprised by attacks they never see coming. The ball turret, despite its impressive firepower, offers limited situational awareness. We are losing bombers to an enemy we cannot effectively observe." The Army Air Forces responds with the tools they have: more training, tighter formations, better tactics. None of it works. The Luftwaffe adapts faster. They perfect the von unten hinten attack from below and behind, exploiting the ball turret's blind zone with surgical precision. Bomber after bomber goes down, men bailing out or riding the burning wreckage to the ground. By October 1943, after the second Schweinfurt raid cost the 8th Air Force 60 bombers in a single day, the strategic bombing campaign teeters on the edge of collapse. General Ira Eaker, commander of the 8th, suspends deep penetration missions into Germany. Without fighter escort, the Flying Fortress isn't untouchable. It's a flying coffin. Staff Sergeant Louis E. Lou. Benefield doesn't look like someone who's about to change history. He's 24 years old, broad-shouldered, with oil-stained hands and a high school education from rural Oklahoma. Before the war, he worked in his father's garage, fixing tractors and farm equipment. He knows carburetors, hydraulics, and how to improvise when the parts catalog doesn't have what you need. When Pearl Harbor is attacked, he enlists, scores high on mechanical aptitude tests, and gets assigned to armament school. By early 1943, he's stationed at Lowry Field, just outside Denver, training B-17 gunners and maintaining the base's fleet of training aircraft. Benefield is good at his job. He's the guy you call when a turret won't rotate, when a gun jams, when something breaks in a way the manual doesn't cover. But he's not an engineer. He's not an officer. He doesn't have a desk at Wright Field or a contract with Boeing. He's a sergeant who spends his days elbow deep in hydraulic fluid, teaching 19-year-olds how not to shoot off their own tail. And yet, he sees the problem. Every week, combat veterans rotate back to Lowry for R&R or reassignment. They come through Benefield's shop, their eyes hollow, their stories consistent. The ball turret gunners always say the same thing. We can't see them coming. By the time we spot them, they're already shooting. Benefield listens. He asks questions. He spends hours inside a training ball turret, lying on his back, staring through the gun sight. He realizes the gunner's field of view is astonishingly narrow, maybe 30 degrees of effective vision through the optical sight. Everything outside that cone is invisible. The gunner might as well be wearing a paper bag over his head. In November 1943, after the Schweinfurt disaster, Benefield sits in the base workshop, frustrated. Around him, other mechanics are working, hammering, cursing. He lights a cigarette, stares at the turret trainer mounted in the corner, thinks about the problem. What if the gunner could see around himself? Not through radar. That's too complex, too slow. Not through periscopes. Tried that. Doesn't work. What if he could see directly, like a driver checking mirrors before changing lanes? Benefield stands up, walks over to a wrecked training aircraft sitting in the salvage yard, starts pulling parts. He finds a set of mirrors, small, angled reflectors used in the cockpit. He brings them back to the workshop, starts sketching. His supervisor, Warrant Officer James Talbot, walks past. "What are you working on, Benefield?" "An idea, sir." "What kind of idea?" Benefield shows him the sketch. Mirrors mounted on arms inside the ball turret, angled to give the gunner peripheral vision. Multiple mirrors, arranged so the gunner can see below, behind, and to the sides without moving his head. Talbot frowns. "You think mirrors are going to stop a Messerschmitt?" "I think they might help the gunner see it before it shoots." Talbot shakes his head. "It'll never work. Vibration will shake them loose. Glare will blind the gunner. And even if it works, no one's going to approve a field modification based on a sketch from a sergeant." Benefield nods. "Probably right, sir." Then he builds it anyway. While Benefield is experimenting in Colorado, the air war over Europe is reaching a crisis point. In January 1944, the 8th Air Force launches Operation Argument, later called Big Week, a coordinated series of massive raids targeting German aircraft production. The goal is to cripple the Luftwaffe's ability to replace losses. The cost is staggering. Over 6 days, the 8th loses 137 bombers and nearly 1,400 men. Many of the losses come from attacks the gunners never saw. At Wright Field in Ohio, the Army Air Force's engineering headquarters, teams of specialists are working on the ball turret problem. They try everything: upgraded optics, experimental periscopes, redesigned turret configurations. Nothing works. The fundamental issue remains. You can't give a man peripheral vision when his entire field of view is locked to a gun sight. In February 1944, a confidential report from the 8th Air Force's Operational Research Section concludes, current ball turret design provides insufficient situational awareness for gunners to effectively counter low-angle attacks. Recommended solutions require significant aircraft modification and production delays incompatible with operational tempo. Translation: we know it's a problem. We don't know how to fix it. And we can't stop flying missions while we figure it out. The men in the turrets know this. They climb into those plexiglass spheres every mission, knowing they're reactive, not proactive. They wait for death to appear in their gun sight, then try to shoot it before it kills them. Sometimes they succeed. Often they don't. By March 1944, the average life expectancy of a ball turret gunner in the 8th Air Force is 11 missions. Benefield works on his mirror system for 3 months, mostly at night, mostly alone. He starts with salvaged cockpit mirrors, curved, polished metal, and mounts them on adjustable arms inside a training ball turret. The first version is a disaster. The mirrors vibrate too much. The angles are wrong. The gunner gets disoriented, nauseous. Benefield adjusts. He dampens the vibration with rubber mounts. He calculates new angles, testing them himself by lying inside the turret for hours, marking sight lines with grease pencil on the plexiglass. He replaces the curved mirrors with flat ones, reducing distortion. He adds a third mirror to cover the rear blind spot. He shows the second version to Talbot. Better, the warrant officer admits. Still won't work in combat. Why not? Mirrors reflect sunlight. Gunner's going to get blinded every time he looks up. Benefield nods. Goes back to work. He tints the mirrors, reducing glare. He angles them more steeply, keeping direct sunlight out of the gunner's eyes. He tests them at midday, with the Colorado sun blazing, and finds the sweet spot where visibility and glare balance out. The third version works. Inside the turret, the gunner can now see everything. The primary mirror shows a 120-degree field below and behind the aircraft. The secondary mirrors cover the flanks. The gunner doesn't have to wait for a fighter to cross his gun sight. He can see it climbing, maneuvering, setting up for an attack, seconds before it opens fire. Benefield climbs out of the turret sweating, calls over Corporal Martinez, a gunnery instructor. "Get in!" Martinez climbs in. Benefield closes the hatch, walks around the turret, moving in and out of sight. "Can you see me?" "Yeah." "Now?" "Yeah." "What about now?" Benefield moves directly behind the turret, into what should be the blind spot. "Still see you. Holy shit, Sarge. I can see everything." Benefield opens the hatch. Martinez climbs out, grinning. "This changes things." "Maybe," Benefield says, "if anyone will listen." Getting anyone to listen takes weeks. Benefield writes a report, submits it through channels, gets ignored, writes another, gets rejected, insufficient technical specifications. He builds a wooden mock-up, carries it to the base commander's office, gets turned away at the door. In April 1944, a stroke of luck. Colonel William Reed, commander of the 389th Bomb Group, rotates back to Lowry for 2 weeks of staff duty. Reed is a combat veteran, 32 missions over Europe, Silver Star, Distinguished Flying Cross. He's seen men die because they couldn't see the enemy. Benefield corners him in the officers' club. "Sir, I have something I need to show you." Reed, tired and skeptical, follows him to the workshop. Benefield shows him the mirror system, explains the geometry, the sight lines, the reaction time advantage. Reed listens, asks questions, smart questions. Then he climbs into the turret himself. "Rotate me," Reed says. Benefield activates the turret's manual crank. Reed swivels 360 degrees, watching the mirrors. "Again! Faster!" Benefield cranks harder. The turret spins. The mirrors hold steady. Reed climbs out, stands there, silent, thinking. "How much does this cost?" "About $3 in materials, sir. Maybe an hour of installation time." Reed looks at the turret, looks at Benefield. Can you install one in my ship? Sir, I don't have authorization. I'm authorizing it. My crew, my aircraft, my responsibility. 3 days later, Benefield and 2 mechanics drive to Buckley Field, where Reed's B-17 is undergoing maintenance. They work through the night, installing the mirror system in the ball turret. By dawn, it's done. May 8th, 1944. Reed's crew takes the modified Fortress up for a training flight. The ball turret gunner, Sergeant Mike Kowalski, climbs in. The turret seals. The bomber lifts off. At 10,000 feet, Reed radios the crew. Kowalski, we're going to simulate attacks. Tell me what you see. Reed puts the B-17 through a series of evasive maneuvers, while 2 P-38 Lightnings, playing the role of enemy fighters, make mock attack runs from below. Kowalski's voice comes over the intercom, steady and precise. 2 bandits, 6 o'clock low, closing. Now at 5 o'clock, climbing. Braking right, guns tracking. Bandit at 4 o'clock high, diving. I've got him. Reed's heart is pounding. Kowalski is calling out attacks before they enter his primary field of view. The mirrors are giving him seconds of warning, seconds that mean life or death in combat. After the flight, Reed pulls Kowalski aside. Did it work? Kowalski grins. Sir, I could see everything. It's like having eyes in the back of your head. Reed gets on the phone to 8 Bomber Command. The response from headquarters is cautious. The Army Air Forces has been burned before by field modifications that seem brilliant in testing but failed in combat. But Reed is persuasive, and the casualty numbers are undeniable. In June 1944, permission is granted for limited field testing. 10 B-17s in the 308 9th Bomb Group will be fitted with Benefield's mirror system. Benefield ships the materials to England, mirrors, mounting brackets, installation instructions, and trains a team of armourers at Station 136, Hethel, Norfolk. The modifications take 4 days, June 20th, 1944. The 10 modified fortresses join a mission to Berlin. The target is an oil refinery. The Luftwaffe is waiting. Over Brandenburg, Me-109s attack from below, using their standard climb and fire tactic. But this time, something is different. The ball turret gunners see them coming, not when they're already shooting, when they're still climbing. The gunners open fire early, forcing the German pilots to break off or alter their attack angles. The defensive fire is more accurate, more sustained, more deadly. 3 Me-109s are shot down. 2 more are damaged and forced to disengage. The modified fortresses suffer no losses. After the mission, the debriefs are electric. Gunners are talking over each other, describing the difference. I could see him setting up. I had time to track him. It's like fighting with the lights on. Colonel Reed sends a priority cable to 8 Bomber Command. Mirror system exceeds expectations. Request immediate approval for fleet-wide installation. By July, the order goes out. All B-17s in the 8th Air Force will be retrofitted with the Benefield mirror system. Production begins at depots across England. Armourers work around the clock. By August, more than 1,200 bombers have been modified. The impact is immediate and measurable. In June 1944, before the mirrors, the 8th Air Force's loss rate is 4.2% per mission. By September, after fleet-wide installation, the rate drops to 2.1%. The ball turret kill-to-loss ratio, the number of enemy fighters destroyed versus the number of bombers lost to low-angle attacks, improves by 340%. Major General James Doolittle, commander of the 8th, notes in a September 1944 memo, "The mirror system has proven to be one of the most effective defensive modifications of the war. It costs almost nothing, requires no complex technology, and has saved an estimated 300 aircraft and 3,000 lives in 3 months." Combat reports pour in. Gunners write letters home describing the system. One sergeant, whose name is lost to history, writes to his mother, "They gave us mirrors in the turret. Sounds stupid, I know, but it's like someone turned on the lights. I can finally see what's trying to kill me." The Luftwaffe notices too. By late 1944, German pilots report increased losses during low-angle attacks. Intelligence intercepts capture frustrated radio chatter. American gunners are responding faster, shooting more accurately. The climb and fire tactic, once devastatingly effective, becomes a high-risk gamble. The mirrors don't make the B-17 invulnerable. Nothing could, but they shift the odds. They give the gunners a fighting chance. And in a war fought at 30,000 feet, where seconds decide life and death, a fighting chance is everything. Lou Benefield never becomes famous. He's promoted to technical sergeant in August 1944, receives a letter of commendation from the War Department, and a $100 war bond for his contribution to the war effort. That's it. No medals, no parades, no headlines. After the war, he returns to Oklahoma, opens a garage, marries a schoolteacher named Dorothy, and raises 3 kids. He doesn't talk much about the war. His children grow up not knowing their father saved thousands of lives with salvaged mirrors and stubbornness. In 1947, Boeing incorporates an improved version of Benefield's mirror system into the B-50, the Super Fortress's successor. The company credits field modifications developed during wartime operations, but doesn't mention his name. In 1952, the Air Force adds mirrors to the ball turrets of B-36 Peacemakers. Again, no credit. Benefield doesn't mind. He's not a glory seeker. He's a mechanic who saw a problem and fixed it. To him, that's just the job. He dies in 1979 at age 60 of a heart attack while working on a customer's truck. His obituary in the Tulsa World is 4 sentences long. It mentions his military service, served with the Army Air Forces during World War II, but doesn't explain what he did. For decades, the mirror system is a footnote. Aviation historians focus on the big innovations: radar, jet engines, the atomic bomb. The small fixes, the clever field modifications that saved lives without fanfare, fade into obscurity. But the men who flew with those mirrors never forgot. In 1998, a former ball turret gunner named Robert "Red" Patterson publishes a memoir, Through the Crosshairs. In Chapter 7, he describes the mirror system. Someone, somewhere, had the brains to put mirrors in our turret. I don't know who, I don't know when, but I know it saved my life. On my 18th mission, over Munich, I saw a 190 climbing toward us in the mirror. I had 4 seconds, maybe 5, before he entered my gun sight. That's enough time to track him, lead him, fire a burst. I hit him. He broke off. Without that mirror, I never would have seen him until he was shooting. He would have killed me and probably taken the whole ship down. So whoever you are, wherever you are, thank you. You gave me 50 more years. Patterson's book inspires others. Veterans start sharing their stories, mentioning the mirrors in passing. Aviation researchers begin investigating. In 2003, a historian named Dr. Ellen Grady at the Smithsonian's National Air and Space Museum tracks down the original field reports and identifies Benefield as the inventor. In 2005, the Air Force officially recognizes his contribution. A plaque is installed at the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force in Dayton, Ohio, next to a restored B-17G. It reads, Staff Sergeant Louis E. Benefield, 1919-1979 inventor of the ball turret mirror system. His ingenuity saved thousands of lives and changed the air war over Europe. Benefield's children, now in their 60s, attend the dedication. They cry. They never knew. Today, the principle Benefield pioneered, giving isolated operators situational awareness through simple, low-tech solutions, is standard practice. Fighter pilots use helmet-mounted displays. Helicopter gunners have panoramic camera systems. Tank crews have all-around vision blocks. The technology has evolved, but the core idea remains. You can't fight what you can't see. Benefield understood this in 1943, with nothing but mirrors and guts. The story of Lou Benefield isn't just about mirrors. It's about refusing to accept the unacceptable. It's about a man who saw a problem everyone else called impossible and decided to fix it anyway. Not because he wanted glory, not because he had orders, but because men were dying and he couldn't stand it. If this story matters to you, if you believe that history should remember the names of the people who saved lives from the shadows, then share it. Tell someone. Keep Lou Benefield's name alive. The mirror system didn't win the war. It didn't make headlines. But between June 1944 and May 1945, it helped bring home an estimated 400 bombers that would have been shot down. That's 4,000 men who lived instead of died. That's 4,000 families who got their sons, brothers, and fathers back. All because a sergeant from Oklahoma refused to accept that's just how it is. In a war fought with million-dollar bombers, 1,000-horsepower engines, and billion-dollar strategies, one of the most effective innovations cost $3 and came from a man with grease under his fingernails and a stubborn belief that there's always a better way. The Flying Fortress earned its name through firepower, but it became truly formidable when a forgotten armorer gave its gunners the one thing no amount of armor could provide: the ability to see death coming and meet it head-on. Sometimes the greatest weapon isn't forged in a factory. It's built in a workshop by someone who refuses to let good men die for a problem that has a solution. Sometimes the hero isn't a general or a pilot or a politician. Sometimes it's a sergeant with a screwdriver and a dream. Remember his name, Louis E. Benefield. Remember that innovation doesn't always wear stars on its shoulders. And remember this: the next time someone tells you a problem is impossible, they might just be waiting for someone stubborn enough to prove them wrong. Because sometimes the greatest weapon in history isn't a machine, it's a mind that refuses to give up.